Do you invest your time or dollars in a philanthropic foundation or charitable organization? If so, do you talk about that experience in a professional setting, or do you keep it to yourself? Do you set aside time to do a deep dive into the human side of your business with the goal of creating a better workplace for all? In today's podcast, we will talk about a way to improve the human experience at your company while giving back and networking with industry peers at the same time. But before we begin, I want to tell you about my team's latest project, Monitor Suite, which I am really excited about. Monitor Suite is Monitor's new subscription platform for exclusive premium equipment finance industry content and much more. It features high quality streaming series like our mini documentary series, Reels, and 3 Minutes, which features 3-minute videos with industry leaders. Monitor Suite members also have 24/7 access to our entire library of in-depth data reports dating back to 1992, members-only live stream events, exclusive articles, and much more. For information on Monitor Suite, please visit monitordaily.com/suite. Monitor Suite is actually a project that I was working on throughout this year during my time in cohort 2 of Stripe's leadership program, which just so happens to be today's podcast sponsor. Stripes is a leadership development program for the equipment finance industry. This 10-month program launches with a 3-day intensive transformational program and also includes master talks and master workshops from notable industry and leadership experts, working cohort groups with other industry professionals, outcome-driven development sessions, and much more. Stripes has been a phenomenal experience for me. I just graduated 2 weeks ago, and I encourage all of you to learn more about the program by visiting stripesleadership.com. Hi, everyone. I'm Rita Garwood, Editor-in-Chief of Monitor. Joining me on the podcast today is Jesse Johnson. Jesse is founder of Equipment Finance Cares and president of Consult Disrupt. Jesse, I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Rita. It's interesting being on this side of one of these interviews for once. So hopefully I don't mess it up too much.
I'm sure you'll do fine. And it was awesome being on your fireside chat. That was the same experience I had there. So it's cool that we're able to do this.
No, thank you for having me on.
So for those who don't know you, I know just about everybody knows you in the industry. Can you just share a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now? I know you launched this consulting business recently. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I joined, Jesse Johnson, as Rita mentioned earlier. I got into equipment finance in 2005. Like everyone else, I kind of stumbled into it. The company I was working for was like, hey, we have one customer, go out and find more. So, I was handed an attendee list and there I went. So that was OSG, was there for 6 years. Then I was with Lease Team or LTI for 10, JDR for 2. And as Rita mentioned, I started Consult Disrupt, almost a month ago. So been a career service provider, I guess, if that makes sense. But from an overall perspective, pretty much seeing the majority of things to do on the service provider side. From so OSG was invoicing, third-party presentment. LTI is lease accounting software, and JDR did integrations, portfolio management. So literally seen it all. Seen the good side of what organizations do, and not the not so good side of where things can improve from a customer experience perspective, which led me to want to start my own company, and that's where Consult Disrupt kind of came from. Name wise, I don't know. My wife and I were playing around with it a couple of years ago. when I became a certified coach. I didn't realize there was such a thing as you had to go through an international coaching federation and get
Mhm.
approved. No clue, but it was one of those things for COVID where we weren't going anywhere. So why not try to expand your skill set? So I became one of those and started doing some business coaching. What I came to find out was I wasn't necessarily practicing what I was preaching to people, and looking to apply that to my company, where it's like, how do we improve our processes? How do we get better? The only challenge sometimes you have with doing that is some people don't like constructive criticism. Go figure, it's the world we live in, but oh well, is what it is. So decided just to kind of do it on my own. And the company, we're building a team of subject matter experts. We're starting off our first few projects for RFP creation and analysis. So coming into an organization who's looking to replace their lease operating platform or system, spending a couple days with them, understanding all the requirements, writing the the RFP documents, not being obnoxious. I mean, over my 10-year in equipment finance, I was probably a part of over 100 RFPs and 200 different conversions. It's one of those things, Rita, where some of them are 400 questions, some of them are 50. It's like, come on, at some point it's overkill. Like, let's get to the meat and potatoes, what we need to cover here, and then just move on from there to see if people are a good fit. So that's our first projects that we're working on. We're also doing kind of fragmented employees to assist from a support perspective, report creation, just troubleshooting challenges that people have with lease accounting system. So kind of the goal is there's a business need and a technical need. But what people don't realize is there a cultural fit between the organizations.
Mhm.
You can check all the boxes, but at the end of the day, if the relationship's not going to work, then what are people doing? Been fortunate where I've been a service provider. I competed against the majority of the lease accounting platforms. So you kind of know where the skeletons are, and you know where people exceed and where it's going to be a challenge. So it's being that intermediary, just being that, independent third party that can make sure that projects stay on track.
Cool. That sounds like a lot that you're offering. And when did you first start this?
So they came up with the name in 2020.
Mhm.
I started my first official project even before I joined JDR,
Mhm.
just helping someone through an RFP. And then, officially it was people were telling me it's like time to go. It's time to see where we can take this.
Awesome. So in addition to all of this, you also launched Equipment Finance Cares. And I'd like to, for those who don't know about Equipment Finance Cares, can you tell the story of what led you to do that?
Sure. So, and I want to first off thank the Monitor for their continued support and your continued support. I was glad that you were able to attend one of these earlier this year. So, Equipment Finance Care started off with a book project that I was working on with Laverne Gordon. I'm wearing her color today. So thank you, Laverne, for all your work there. We originally were trying to figure out how do we spread her. She's a two-time domestic violence survivor. For people who don't know Laverne, I would think probably almost same amount of people that know Laverne than they know me. But how do we share her book project with our industry that we've had a combined 45 years in at that point in time? So we had a speaking engagement at a NEFA conference up in Minneapolis. Reached out to a few people to see if they'd like to come hear Laverne's story, and they were like, "Well, what else do you got?" So started like just kind of spitballing some ideas. Reached out to a few contacts, and people want to know, well, what are things you're going to be talking about? So Deb Rubin, I asked her if she would moderate a panel for me. Without hesitation, she agreed. So I moderated a panel, she moderated a panel. Then it was like, okay, we're going to have Laverne talk about her project. What other people have foundations in Minnesota that I know? So we had about another half dozen people come and talk about their foundations. So this was just kind of trial and error to see if this was going to succeed. A little nerve wracking because going out on a limb, especially in June of 2021, when majority of the country was still on lockdown. But we took a chance, had really positive feedback from the event. Based on some of the press releases that were written, we had Sean Arnone from Key reach out and said he wanted to host one at his country club. Started to understand we were getting some momentum behind this, formed an advisory council, and we ended up with 3 events last year. So it's an ever evolving platform.
That's awesome. And I picked up a copy of Liveran's book at the Equipment Finance Cares event that outside of Philadelphia that I attended this year. And wow, what a powerful story. I finished reading it. Like I waited, it took a while for me to actually start reading it, but once I started, I was like, I couldn't put it down. It was, wow, she's been through so much, and it's great that she's able to speak at these events. So you mentioned that there were 3 in 2022. Can you tell me about, some of the companies that were involved in that, some of the foundations? What kind of results did you get from those?
Sure. So last year, I want to say of the 3 events that we had, now this was in 2021, we had 3 events. I want to thank our main sponsors that we've had throughout this since inception, which was Great American Insurance and Dedicated. Those guys have been with us the entire time. We picked up more this year, but those guys have been hand in hand with us. So thank you to both of them. Because we're a completely complete volunteer-based organization. So it helps us put them on. So last year, I want to say we raised a little over $8,000 over those 3 events that we donated to. I want to say we had about 14 different charities last year. In 2022, we put on 4 events, raised just a little under $20,000. We've hosted 190 different equipment finance professionals this year from over 100 different companies. So we're continuing to gain momentum for EFC.
That's really exciting. And the event that I attended, I really enjoyed it. I appreciated having the opportunity just to hear about all of the different foundations that everyone was involved in, and having the opportunity to, not only learn more about them, but to donate as well. And just having that networking. It was like a really small group. So it was like you're able to talk to a lot of the people there, which I really enjoyed too. I got to know some people, which I liked. So what's in store for 2023 for EF Cares?
Yes, so we have 5 events planned for next year. The 4 regional events we have, the first one's going to be in April, which Wintrust is going to be hosting in Frisco. And then we're going to be collaborating with NEFA in June to do one on the front side of the Crab Feast, which is going to be the Tuesday before your event starts on Wednesday.
Oh, cool.
So there was some strategery in Cal and I planning that one, so we could capture those people who are like me, who are going to be flying in to attend your event. How can we kill 2 birds with 1 stone? So that one's going to be in June. Syndify is going to be hosting one in September in Chicago. I forgot, we have our first golf tournament, which is going to be in Spark Hill, New York, August 7th. And Key is the main sponsor for that one. And then in November, we're going to do one probably here in my backyard in Phoenix. It's a leasing hotbed out here. It's growing. So I'm sure we'll find somebody to sponsor that, and they'll most likely be like a Centium or Bank of the West.
Awesome. That's great. Sounds like you've got a big schedule. And for those who aren't aware of the event that Monitor's hosting that Jesse just mentioned, we are having our 50th anniversary celebration, June 14th and 15th. So that's great that they're all aligned. So everybody who's traveling from the West Coast can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. That's great.
Yep.
So for those who haven't attended an EF Cares event, I know I kind of briefly mentioned what my experience was like, but can you just give us a rundown of what you can expect as an attendee?
Yeah, I mean, we continue to, I guess, evolve as a foundation. I have an advisory board that I constantly bounce ideas off of. They just basically like a sanity check in regards to, are we getting stale? Because that's some of the challenges that you run into, and you see this all the time with, you guys are the voice of the industry, where it's the same repetitive stuff over and over again. And while things are important, you also have to make sure you're fresh and keeping best, the industry's best intentions in mind. So traditionally, we always focused on like the human side of equipment finance. So we'd focus on topics that are traditionally uncomfortable to talk about, especially in a large group setting. Our events average about 50 people per event. Some are in the high 30s, some are in the low 60s, but we average about, late high 40s, early low 50s. I said early 50s. That's fantastic. A little jet lag still, so sorry. But it's when we talk about mental health, you're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just our human capital that we have and what the last couple of years have done to them. It allows people to, some of these conversations are difficult for me. The last one that we had in Southern California, I don't know if you know Jeff Bilbrey, who's the president of LeasePath. His wife, Hillary, is a coach. And she came in and instead of doing panels, she just did an hour and a half workshop where it was like a connecting thing. And she kind of put me on the spot where it was like, what is your why? And I'm kind of like, no, like, I don't want to be that, but it opens you up a little bit more. And, traditionally when people are networking, they're all friendly, smiles and everything else, but people are still kind of guarded. When you come to one of these events and you kind of hear people, not only talk about like what they're doing for their employees or what some of these programs that people have come up with have benefited the human capital. And then all of a sudden you see these foundation showcases. Steve Grosso is a perfect example, right? Steve traditionally to me was kind of uncomfortable to approach because the guy's had a lot of success and Steve is Steve, business, business, business. You mentioned the word magic to him, which is the foundation that him and his wife started. And it's a completely different conversation. Same thing with Lisa. You mentioned magic to Lisa and she's just like, oh, suddenly she shifts a little bit more and you kind of see the light in the eye and it's just different. So it just allows you to connect with the other equipment finance professionals in the room on a more, I guess, deeper level than what you would traditionally go to if you just met someone at another conference.
Yeah, that's so true. Because a lot of them are involved in these, like, it's like a personal reason, something that really matters a lot to them. It might be completely outside of their professional realm in the case of Steve and Lisa. And yeah, and you get to learn about that side of them and about these organizations. It was an awesome event. I encourage anybody who's able to attend to go next year. So any companies out there, if there are people who are actively engaged in some sort of foundation or philanthropy of some sort, how can they get involved or featured in the FCARES event?
Well, the monitor's gracious enough to offer us a spot every Friday, Foundation Fridays, that I've been slacking on. So I apologize with everything that's been going on. But reach out to me. We have that platform that you guys give to us every Friday, where it's just a quick 5 to 10 minute interview on, who's your foundation, why are you a part of it, where do donated dollars go. Reach out to me to see if we can get you on a foundation showcase at one of our upcoming events. We just recently rolled out some committees that each advisory member chairs, from marketing to strategy to just communications, fundraising. So if people want to get involved, reach out. We've had a lot of good support and an overwhelming number of people that say they want to help. But the bigger challenge that you run into is a lot of the people it's not really a challenge. People in this industry traditionally don't want to speak up and say all the goodwill that they're doing. And that's fantastic. And I don't blame it, because people they're not passionate about it for a pat on the back. They do it because they believe in it and it's what they care about. So they don't like the distraction. And I get that. However, the only way to create awareness on something is if it's kind of front and center. And we provide that platform where people can, talk about their passion projects in a intimate setting, but yet it has spiders out to the entire industry.
Yeah. And it's also, setting that example for anyone who's seeing, like, just letting like, you would never know that like a Steve Grosso is involved in something like that. You maybe think he's all business, but actually seeing all of these people actively involved in these projects it's inspiring, So for anyone on the fence or not wanting to speak up, think about the impact just that you could have.
Well, and especially for the, the younger generation
Yeah.
who it's not necessarily, I mean, when you look at some of the data, they're more likely to go with an employer who gives more back to the community um, than to take a higher salary job, which is kind of foreign because I'm like, wait, what? Like, what are you doing? So when you look at certain organizations, Dext is a good example where they have multiple different charities. I mean, Blue Street, who hosted the one in Huntington, anyone who they have a day, it's called Blue Street Cares. They have a day where someone comes up and if they want to talk about a foundation or charity, they make a donation to that charity, no questions asked.
That's awesome.
So that corporate goodwill goes a long way, and it's good for our industry.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, yeah, especially younger people doing something that really matters is so much more important now than that monetary value for them in
Well,
many cases.
and plus the price point to attend one of these regional events is significantly lower than
Mhm.
the typical trade associations as well. I mean, it's not like we're here from a pricing perspective, but it affords those people that in regional areas that can't make it to a conference with a hotel and everything else, the ability to go network. So it's an
Yeah,
added value.
definitely. So we're just about out of time. That was all the questions I had for you. Any final thoughts?
No, once again, I wanted to thank you, Rita, for having me on and thank the monitor. I want to just call out my advisory council real quick because as much as I sit there and preach all the time, if it wasn't for them, I would not be here. So you have Nancy Robles, Stephanie Hall, Reed Rakovich, Ricky Rios, Jamie Haver. God, I'm gonna get crucified if I miss anyone on this here. I think I wrote those down. Blair Dawson, don't shoot me, Blair. Sorry. In our board, which is Sean Arnone, RJ Grimshaw, and Laverne Gordon. Without that team, we wouldn't be here today, and without the sponsors that we have, and all the people that that come forward and talk about their foundations and charities. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here either.
Awesome. Well, thank you for talking with me today and sharing more about this. I hope we see
Sure.
a lot more great activity for EF Cares in the new year and Consult Disrupt too. Hope all that goes well as you build that out.
2023 will be a fun year, that's for sure, Rita.
Oh, I bet. All right. Well, thanks, Jesse.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate your time.